Welcome back to the Elle-Sera podcast. And today I've got Tash Courtenay-Smith with me. She is somebody I stick to very closely. She's a marketing genius. She's the founder of D2C Live and BizKids. So we're going to get into what they are, but essentially what this girl says about marketing is 100% worth knowing. So hi, Tash.
Hey, Lisa.
So I should say that actually, and I was looking at this the other day, I've actually got 2 of your books at home as well.
Have you got both books?
Both books, yeah. And I was like, and one is, and the one I bought years ago.
The $1 Million Blog.
Yeah,
yes.
Before I even knew you or anything. I was
yeah.
living in Winchester, just like, oh, this looks cool. Maybe I should be a blogger. And then, and then I bought the other one about like how to stand out online, I think.
Yeah. That was more recent.
Yeah.
And the $1 Million Blog was a best-selling book, which is like, it hit the bestsellers list, which was crazy at the time. And it's now really out of date. Loads of people read it still.
Right.
And contact me and say they've read it. And I'm always a bit like, oh, I mean, it's great. It's one of those books where half of it still remains true and stands the test of time, but the platforms and the specific tactical advice is now out of date. I mean, that book was written 2016, so 8 years ago, quite a long time ago.
Yeah. Would you ever think about then, if you got another book in you, would you do another?
Oh, I don't think so, Alyssa. They're horrific things to do. The number of words in them. I mean, I've always got the option to update the $1 Million Blog, but I never do because I'm like, my goodness, they're such massive tasks, books.
They are.
They're such huge things and there's just so many words in them. And also, I think the content distribution has changed quite a lot. So a book's brilliant. It gets in bookshops. People love it. You know, people remember it. So you remember the $1 Million Blog and loads of people do. But I actually think people could consume content slightly differently as well. And books, I mean, personally, I rarely buy books anymore. I used to be an avid reader. And then when I do buy them, I never read them because I'm just distracted every night by TikTok.
You're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. I've got so many stacks of books and like they're all highlighted, but I'll never get more than like through like about maximum 10 pages a day.
I mean, I know.
Maximum.
And it's like, and in books, I never even really get past, say, the first 60 pages. And I think that's really common. So I'm not sure. There's something very prestigious about having a book. And I'm really pleased that I've got 2, but I'm not sure I'd ever do one again. And if anyone listening has read the $1 Million Book, it's still worth reading.
Yeah.
It's very useful and it's very practical. And some of those principles stand the test of time. Stand Out Online as well, which is a book about personal branding, is less out of date because it was written more recently. But because we live in a world where the platforms are changing all the time, they date quite fast.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got things like TikTok coming along and all the other changes we have in media. So they're both out of date. But
I heard yesterday that Telegram is going to like really take over.
I really hope not. I mean, how many more channels do we need?
So like, because they're going to make that like the new WeChat.
Yeah.
You know, so you'd be able to pay for everything online. And I was thinking, God, isn't that like nutty platform for conspiracy theorists? Because I don't know, Telegram, it was kind of like, I just remember everybody in COVID downloading Telegram because it was a way of...
It's a way of talking to people. I mean, I don't know that much about Telegram, but it's one of those platforms that people talk on when they want to do things in secret, isn't it?
Yeah. And like the black market. But
like it's a black, but maybe it's going to become the next best thing. We're all going to have to be experts at it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, exactly. And because it's going to adopt, I can't remember what I was listening to. It was some cryptocurrency. Anyway, it was going to adopt a cryptocurrency so you'd be able to pay with it. And I was just like, oh.
Not another one.
The world's moving too fast. I want to get off. You know, I just like, oh, for God's sake. But I mean, talking about other ones. So tell me about latest, greatest platforms, what we should all be tuning into, because I'm still living in like the 2010s really in my head. This top is from when I was like 15 and I just feel like I'm regressing. I don't want to move with the times. And for somebody who runs an e-commerce business, I'm like, what am I doing? But I'm still living in Instagram stills.
Okay, I was going to say, where's 2010 for you? Is that it's Instagram stills? Instagram stills. Or is it like things like the Daily Mail and This Morning? I don't know where 2010 sits.
So I'm definitely still a little bit traditional PR. I'm Daily Mail. I'm definitely Daily Mail. I'm still doing pretty pictures on Instagram, which are like high, lifestyle-y, that's where I want to live in my head. I absolutely, it sounds awful, but like, if content's like too real sometimes, I'm a bit like, yeah, great, but is that the style that we want? It's not the style. I've always wanted an aspirational looking brand.
Yeah.
Well,
there's always a difference between, and you know this, Alyssa, because, we should say that you and I were both originally journalists and we were both, and this is perhaps one of the most important things about you as a brand operator that I see with you. Does everyone know this about you?
Yeah, well, everyone knows I'm a journalist. I was a journalist, yeah.
So, but Alyssa and I are from a particular section of the media, which is very mass very fast moving, which is kind of daily news and, daily news and huge stories. Like lots of your work would have made massive coverage in the national newspaper and on TV, and the same with me. So we're from a world in which we do, if we go back to 2010 or before that, that's just what people liked consuming, wasn't it? Great, gritty, true life stories, news stories delivered through the mediums of television and newspapers and women's magazines. Do you remember how much everyone loved women's magazines?
And they used to pay so much. So
I used to wait till they used to come out on Wednesdays or Thursdays. I used to walk to the newsagents, buy them all and love it.
I know. And they used to pay really well, especially as a freelancer, really, really well.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a great industry to be in. And to some extent, I see that we're still in the same industry, in that people are still people and they like consuming media and they like consuming content. However, the types of content they like to consume and how they like to consume it, through which platforms, whichever one's trending at the moment, whichever one's got all the attention, that's changing the whole time. And I think when you're a traditionalist, that's quite difficult to come to terms with and quite difficult to keep up with, especially if you're from a background where certain media publications have huge power and influence, i.e. main national newspapers and women's magazines. So I see that nothing's changed since those days. People are still the same. They're still voracious consumers of content. They're still looking out for content the whole time. They'll spend hours on content. It's just where they get it from has really shifted.
You're not wrong. And also negativity really sells, unfortunately. So women's magazine stories and features, it would be, horrific murder that might have happened to somebody's member of the family, or it would be a sleazy scandal, or a footballer cheating or whatever.
100%. That's the tabloid media.
Absolutely.
And I used to find it really difficult that there was a big juxtaposition between a good story, so what you and I would understand as being a good story, which was a story that could be sold for a lot of money, a story that would make across newspapers, magazines and television, and the fact that that good story was inevitably tied to a terrible tragedy. So because those were the stories that did the best in terms of they would get the most coverage, they would get the most attention, and that was an example of bad news selling. I do think it's slightly different now. I think the mainstream media have also had to correct themselves and not be so negative all the time because the public don't like it so much.
Yeah, I think they're not as intrusive anymore because they just get hung out to dry anyway. And it's actually become easier for journalists because they can just sit there and rip off quotes.
Well, they just go through TikTok and look for Twitter, stuff that's going viral and copy it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of lazy journalists who don't even go out of the office anymore. Whereas,
100%.
I was outside Alan Hansen's house for a week once, thinking, Christ, trying to get a picture of him with, he was doing an advert for Sainsbury's, and I was trying to get him with a Tesco bag. That was the shit I had to do for 7 days until he complained. So I still think everything's quite negatively biased. I know this because sometimes when we're coming up with headlines for our podcasts, we've seen that anything that's got a negative headline, and Stephen Bartlett does this every time, they're all negative headlines. The negative headlines on YouTube seem to rank much better, which is horrible because sometimes I'm like, well, that was a great chat. And actually, I'm literally just pulling one quote out, making it more dramatic and getting people to click on it. But that's the world we're in.
Well, it is the world we're in. I used to live in fear when I was at the Mail because you'd write a perfectly nice article. Then the headline that would come out would be an exact illustration of that. And you'd be thinking, oh my goodness, and this is really giving. The person would be distraught about the headline. Yeah. And you'd be thinking, well, the story's fine, but the headline's a nightmare. I mean, it's interesting that that those headlines still do well. I think that's just, I think that's just a function of being a human being then, is being drawn to this clickbait style
evolutionary content. Anything, you're negatively biased to keep you
protect
safe.
Yourself. Yeah. But I do think overall the media is nowhere near as extreme as it was when we were in it.
No.
It's much more celebratory than it used to be. Definitely on social platforms, 100%. There's much more of a push towards heartwarming reunion stories than there is pure tragedy and despair.
Yeah, and circling, rolls of fat on celebrities and saying,
exactly. And there's a lot more inclusivity as well. So, I remember years ago, if a person didn't look kind of conventional, it was quite difficult to get their accompanying story into print because they might be being judged on what they look like. I don't see that that's the case anymore now. I see that stories come from people of all sorts of backgrounds, looks, preferences and can still gain huge reach regardless of that. And I think that's a good thing, because I remember so many times working on quite important stories, but really knowing that the story would be limited by sort of how that person looked or presented themselves, which is nothing really to do with the story, is it?
No, it's absolutely. It's still, completely. I still see it with kind of, and even when I'm pitching stuff in, I still do it now. And I'm like, she's right up your street. And what I'm saying is,
she looks the part.
She looks good. Like your readers.
Yeah.
Whatever title I'm giving a call to, they, and I'm saying I'm pitching a case study or something like that. They want to see what they look like. Unfortunately, that's just the world that we live in. And, you've got to pick someone that isn't covered in tattoos. And if they are, they have to wear a cardigan or whatever, or they'll Photoshop it all out. True,
but those people can do well with their stories on social media, which is great. But because before they couldn't go anywhere. It was mainstream media or nothing.
Yeah.
And I always, even at the time, used to feel that was really unfair. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but, as journalists, we really were gatekeepers to kind of people having a voice. And I used to think, because I was quite young as a journalist, I think, God, it's so unfair that I'm here and I'm 24 and I'm able to say no to this person because I know they don't really look the part that's going to get them in the paper, and therefore they don't get a voice. Whereas now anyone can have a voice, which is a better place to be.
And with podcasts and longer form content as well. Yeah, there's much more of that I see all the time. I like Lad Bible, who they do those interviews with people that you would never really hear from.
Yeah.
They're really interesting. Yeah. It is really interesting content. So yeah, it was much better, to be honest. Okay, so that's kind of like where we've both come from. So talk to me about what's great now. So, is Instagram over? Because I bloody hope it's not.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the scale of people on these platforms is enormous, and even beyond what we can kind of compute or imagine in our heads. Even with Facebook, which is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Facebook other than it's not the new contender on the block anymore. So it's a bit of, Facebook.
It's a bit like
boring.
It's for the old, it's the generation above me, I feel like.
Yeah. So it's slightly, I'm not sure exactly what their numbers are, but I'm sure it's on a downwards trajectory and losing volume to, say, TikTok or YouTube Shorts, which obviously reinvented itself as TikTok. And then obviously they own Instagram. But I still think the numbers on Facebook are enormous.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
I think they're huge. And I think for brands like yours, where you're selling into a demographic that's aged over 40, there's a lot of brands. If we're now talking about brands, people selling products, how they access customers, there's a lot of brands that are still doing very well on Facebook, and huge amounts of ad budget still going onto Facebook.
I mean, I'm trying to pull all my ad budget away from it. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of them having so much control over.
I think that is an issue, how much control they have and how much money actually goes to Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at my I'm going to speak in a few acronyms here, but I'll try and explain them. So I looked at my ROAS the other day for Meta. Just ignored Google because that's actually doing really well. So that was at 10 ROAS, which is absolutely amazing. But dragged right down by the horrible cousin, which is Meta. And that was like not even a 1 ROAS. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
And that doesn't even take out VAT. I mean, that's like gross. Once you actually get to the actual
plus the people who are running the ads, plus the creative team
plus
on top.
Plus the cost of the product.
Yeah.
No, I know.
So I was just like, what the fuck is going on? I might as well go to the casino.
Well, I mean, there was an incredible stat I read, which was about the percentage of venture capital money that's gone to Facebook. And I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was like, of all the venture capital money in 2022, 60% of it went to Facebook. And I thought, wow, if you think that actually there's a person there, Mark Zuckerberg, what an extraordinary setup just to be able to siphon in 60% of venture capital money. I'm not sure what the stat is, but it's significant, as in a percent. All the money, often when you look at companies and what they're raising money for, what are you raising for? Marketing. What's that marketing budget for? It's going to Facebook. And then you're delivering it to a platform that, is not the most easiest to use from a back end point of view. It's very complicated. There's a lot of pieces to it as it's grown over the years. There's a lot of pieces that you have to sort of stitch together. This is very boring and technical, very tedious work for anyone involved in it. Doesn't always work. Customer service is not necessarily what you'd like it to be.
Yeah.
If you can't exactly pick up the phone.
No, I can't get a hold of anyone at Meta when they're banning all the ads and say,
exactly.
hi,
so
why are you banning our ads?
No, you can't really have a conversation. if you are lucky enough to be assigned an account manager, they're often not that experienced, particularly compared to, say, your agencies or even someone like you might be yourself. And you're desperately trying to cling on to them because at least it's someone at Facebook, so that when the ad account does get banned or whatever, you can actually speak to a person. I mean, it's definitely not an ideal setup as a platform.
I'm really moving away from it. I've literally looked at these figures. I was like, it's over. Like,
so where are you going?
It's over. I'm going back to people buy from people.
Yeah, and I've always
maintained this.
Yeah,
it's the same, because more often than not, and I've looked through our inbox and I speak to our customers and I say, how did you hear about us? My friend recommended it to me. And I'm like, okay, so you might have seen an ad. You might have been fed it, but you didn't look at it. You didn't click on it. You didn't buy from it.
Yeah.
You bought it because your friend recommended it. So I'm going to pull all that fund away, which is fucking huge funds, away from Meta. And let's say we try it for 3 months. And I tell you what, I will then do in-person events. You bring your friend, bring 5 friends with you or whatever. And I guarantee I would make more sales at a lower cost per acquisition.
Well, you need to do that.
Well, no, I'm definitely doing that. We've got an event every single month now.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then I feel like I'm going to empower. There's loads of people who say, can I stock your product? I take it and I love it. And I have a, high-end, esthetician place. So, and I've always said no. But now I'm like, no, they're already cheerleading me already. Let's do that en masse.
Well, I mean, do you know about Susie Marr and Tropic Skincare and what she's done with that?
Well, I know of Tropic and how successful it is, but obviously that's a MLM scheme, isn't it?
No, it's only one level.
Okay.
It's only one level. So it's an ambassador scheme.
Right.
And, really she's flown under the radar, I think, with what she's done. And Susie's a friend of mine and she's been on my TV show, and I've been to the headquarters to meet, see the whole setup. I mean, it's incredible. But what perhaps is more incredible is that there's a British brand doing, I think, close to 100 million in revenue in the beauty industry, an industry which you and I are, really well known and know a lot of people in, and nobody really knows about it. No one in beauty says, oh, one of the biggest brands in this country is Tropic Skincare. It's all like all the Inky list and all the brands that are doing it.
Or Maybelline or whatever,
So they're quietly getting on with an incredible setup. And essentially there's now 20,000 Tropic ambassadors, an extension of what you're talking about setting up, who are all empowered to sell the products. And 20,000 is a huge number of people, isn't it?
Of course.
All out there. So they just sell. There's not drop down levels from that. So they go out and they sell the products. And they all love Susie. They love her vision. They love the products. Many of them have completely changed their lives. So typically they're, just women who probably want to earn a bit of extra money around the kids. We all know, it could be you and me, right? We all know the times when you're like, oh God, how do I earn an extra whatever? But I can't really have a job at the moment because I've got small kids, or I don't really want a job because there's just too much other stuff going on. My parents, all the stuff that we have to deal with all the time. And she's built this army of ambassadors. When she was on my show, I saw them come out in force because Tropic said Susie's on this show. Yeah. And the whole thing was going totally viral. And it was all the ambassadors who were just watching and following. So it's an incredibly powerful thing to mobilise if you can. And I'm amazed, actually, that given the success of Tropic and how they've done it, that it's not a sort of route to market that's more often talked about.
I sat here with Julian, who was involved in GHD's explosion back in the day. Obviously, this was a long time ago now, maybe 20 years ago. But that's exactly how they did it. They empowered the hairdressers and they said, these are the best. And they probably weren't the best on the market, but because you listen to your hairdresser and their word is God, you're not going to go and buy Babyliss and you're not going to go and buy anything else, are you?
Yeah.
So again, if you get the right people to really cheerlead, and then you don't need to give any money to Meta.
No.
And you don't need to, I think definitely.
Well, you don't even need to give money to those people because they are essentially, they either make it work or they don't.
Yeah.
And they're on a revenue share deal. So it's almost like no money down, no brainer. It's up to them to make it work. And if you've got a good product that fits with what they believe in and they're the sort of person who's trying to earn an extra whatever it is. I mean, some of the Tropic ambassadors are earning huge amounts of money, but some of them might only want to earn an extra £300 or £400 a month.
Yeah, for sure. And I just, I look at a lot of people who are in the e-com game. It's usually the e-com bros.
Yeah.
We know them all.
We do know them.
I sit and listen to them quite regularly and I'm like, all you know how to do is spend money. That's all you know how to do.
I mean, you and I talk about this a lot.
I know. And I'm like, what would you do if you couldn't have Facebook and Google? How would you get a customer? You know, are they great salespeople themselves? Probably not. They're techie geeks, a lot of them. They're really good at analytics or whatever. But for me, marketing is not spending money. It's, you know, have you got a great product? You can't just put crap in a bag and just shove it in front of people's eyeballs all the time.
There was a period when you could, you see. So there was quite a long period where you were able to, it was essentially an arbitrage between the cost of advertising, the likelihood of the public to buy, and the profit margin on your product. Or if you could get your product to enough volume, how much money it would eventually make. And that's really where all this kind of, you know, e-com game has originated from. Was that arbitrage. Now, it's no longer as easy as that at all, and consumers are a lot more discerning, and you know, there's more brands in the UK than there must ever have been at any point in history. I mean, it's wild, and they're still launching because there's still opportunities for some people who are very good at this, or who have a great product, or who do things in a unique way to make that work. But you're right, there's a lot of brands who are very good at spending money, and it's really,
almost like we need to do another round of funding. What for? I just want to spend more money on Facebook. And it's like your lifetime. It's almost like it's just like we'll keep spending. You know, the cost per acquisition must be out of control.
I mean, we do so much work on reducing cost per acquisition, and we see some shocking costs of acquisition, and you just think, how can anybody in their right mind think that this is common sense? Because we are only really talking about, I mean, the whole sector in which I've worked in e-commerce is essentially FMCG products. They're all £30, £40, shampoos, conditioners, supplements, face creams. They're all really nice products, but they're not carrying high margins.
No.
And some of them aren't carrying high utilization rates. And meanwhile, the female consumer is forever having her head turned because there's always someone else, another celebrity launching a brand, another product going viral on TikTok that suddenly everyone has to get their hands on, like the watermelon, whatever it is from Glow Recipe. You know, there's always one of those coming in from left field. So there's no reason for a consumer to be loyal. So you actually look at it and you think, unless the product's very good, of course, or unless there's not many people with that type of product. So you look at it and you think, okay, really, we're dealing with quite small sums of money here with lower margins. And to just keep spending money against it in the hope that this margin's eventually going to turn into a huge profit and make your brand worth 100 million. I'm not sure if it actually adds up.
No.
Well, and for most, that doesn't really come to pass. You know, most brands that have been too far down that route are kind of contracting and trying to re-engineer it and trying to reset it up. And interestingly, at the same time, there's then a whole bunch of essentially kids on platforms like TikTok keeping things really simple, live streaming out of garages and doing really well.
Yeah.
So there's a whole new wave of e-commerce entrepreneur, which is slightly different from pouring money into it. They're pouring kind of their time and content into it.
Okay, so talk to me about TikTok, because again, I'm a dinosaur and I'm resisting it as much as possible. I throw up something with no thought at all. Literally, it's just be a podcast clip from here, and there's no thought. I don't spend any time over there. I actually don't like the kind of there's no community over there. So, and I've built my whole brand on community loyalty. You can get hold of me. You know, we'll get back to you with real world questions, advice, signposting, you name it. When you buy our product, and even if you haven't bought it yet, we are like, you know, right behind you, right next to you almost. There is none of that over there. I just see people just being aggressive, arguing.
You're on the wrong side of TikTok.
Maybe I am. Well,
have you been on the North Sea side of TikTok? Do you know this concept about the sides of TikTok?
No, I don't know anything about TikTok because I'm like, it's going to get banned. I hope it does. It's making everyone stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think there's loads of things that are really controversial. I mean, I spent a year on TikTok at the front line with 3 brands. Biz Kids, which is my children's entrepreneurial brand. The Notting Hill Shopping Bag, which is a business I started in 2008 and I'm a shareholder in. And D2C Live, which is obviously the e-commerce conference and community, and a bit on my personal brand. So I have literally been living inside TikTok for a year. I have probably published close to 2,000 TikToks.
Wow.
I have a reach of 4 million views a month, and we have a pop song coming out.
Amazing.
And all of that is because of, you know, the power of TikTok. There definitely is community over there. And it depends there's a phrase, you know, what side of TikTok are you on? Right. And sometimes people say, oh, I'm on the wrong side of TikTok because I'm getting a load of negative stuff.
Yeah.
For instance, one of the most obvious sides was when there was a load of content that went viral about the North Sea, what a treacherous ocean it is. My God, I ended up on the North Sea side of TikTok, which is where all you're seeing is this horrific content of these ships on the North Sea. And you end up stuck on it, like on the FYP, the For You page, all you're seeing is this type of content. So you could believe that the only purpose of TikTok is to go on it and all you see is content from the North Sea. So you then have to kind of slightly retrain it, search up other stuff, make sure you're liking stuff, and then it brings you to another side of TikTok, like a magical world. So
that sounds exhausting, right? It just sounds like, what a load of time I've got to then.
Oh, I don't think it's pretty fast, so I don't think it's that much time. But what is exhausting is the publishing of content. So what is exhausting or what needs consideration, in the same way that chucking 50 grand into Facebook needs consideration. In order to do well on TikTok and be inside it, you have to commit to massive production.
How much production are we talking? Let's say, okay, today I'm having a consult with you about TikTok and I want to actually create a TikTok page and I want it to start working for me and everything. So where would I begin? We've got 1,000 followers.
On TikTok?
Yeah, on TikTok.
Well, first of all, so you need to understand that the algorithm is working from a point of view of publishing is one determination of success. Okay. So like Google used to in 2017, where we all used to publish lots and lots of blog posts.
Like SEO.
SEO, and our websites would rank. So exactly, I mean, obviously no one knows how it works, but from sitting inside it for a year, I can tell you how I think it's working. So publishing frequency is a massive determination of success. It's very hard to publish frequency because the format it requires is video.
Yeah.
And that is hard for people. It's hard to talk on video. It's expensive to get it edited, particularly if you get it in the UK. If you're a business person, do you really want to sit around editing videos with your time for social media? It's not necessarily high priority activity. So the first hurdle is like, well, you're going to need a load of videos.
How many videos a day are we talking? Apologies for interrupting this podcast, but I need to ask a favour. If you're enjoying this podcast so far, then please hit that subscribe button right now. I'll be straight up and honest that I want to see this podcast grow and flourish into something that I'm really proud of. And the only way that I can do that is with your help. So if you've ever learned anything useful from these conversations, then please return the favour by liking, rating, subscribing, and maybe even sharing it with your friends. Thanks very much. Let's get back to the episode. How many videos a day are we talking?
Well, first of all, can you even get to one video a day?
Well, that's 30 a month on average. So, I'm thinking, that's hard.
Right. So most people can't get to one video a day. Then can you, so it's level, the way I see it as well is levels. The first level is tell TikTok you're there in the same way you used to tell Google you were there by publishing blog posts on your website. Tell TikTok you're present by publishing one video a day. You need to do that for 3 to 6 months, because then it's like warming up. This is how, and haven't got this from TikTok. I don't think I have. I've only got this from my own experience. But now knowing that I'm reaching 4 million people a month, one of my channels, a kid's channel, has 10 times the views of Blue Peter a week.
Wow.
So it's not insignificant. The results are not insignificant for sure. And my life has radically changed as a result. So first of all, you've got to sit there and you have to go through this phase of endless publishing and thinking, oh, it's not really working. But in that time, you're building up a body of work. And in the same way as you'd have built up long tail blog posts, the whole body itself, long tail keyword searches with your blog posts in Google, the whole body of work itself is starting to elevate. So one TikTok might not do that well, but overall, the body of work is growing and it starts doing better and better. Then you need to move to publishing twice a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. And for that, you need a massive video production. You need I've only been able to do it through running a big production. Essentially, I believe being a person who's used to working from a big production, i.e. I worked at the Daily Mail. That's a huge production. So I think you've got to be a person who's used to working inside an environment with a lot of content, because, my partner will look at the production boards and be like, how do you even deal with this? And I'll be thinking, well, it's the same as the Daily Mail news lists, really. You would have had the same thing at Cater's.
Kind of, but I kind of I'd pick a story or something that I thought, I think this is great, I want to work on it. And I could work on it for a week maybe if it was really good.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can do that, I guess, if you then can bring in extra resource and have some longer form TikToks.
I mean, the thing is, for me, it'd be like quality. Is it quantity over quality then?
It's both, because you've got to do the quantity to hit the, tell I'm here, I'm publishing. And each time you publish is a moment that might go viral and is a moment that even if it doesn't go viral, will still reach X number of people. But obviously you want to be improving quality as you go. For me, the way I've done it is both. It would have been I would never have got to where I've got if I'd focused on quality and agonized over things. And even now, I'm sometimes like, just get them through, because I know they're just short moments in time. They're just past. And some of them will carry on going viral or last for months, but generally they're short moments in time. I've seen so many people agonize about quality and get precisely nowhere.
That would be me.
I've put out so much stuff that it's now
I'd be like, you haven't shot me from the right angle. We're doing it again.
I mean, Alyssa, some of my TikToks, I look appalling in them. Literally, I look at them and I'm like, oh my God. But the quantity has got me to where I've got. Also, what's worked is engaging with all of TikTok's products. So that's the TikTok Lives, TikTok Shop, the TikTok Q&A functionality. Out of my feeds, the feeds that's done the best is the feed in which I've engaged with most of TikTok's products. At D2C Live 2 years ago, someone from TikTok spoke and she said to me, because I said to her, is there a triad within TikTok where, you know, you have to do well at organic, and then if you have ads and then you do well at live and shop, then everything does better? And she said, yes, that is how it's working. So there is some sort of in the back end, the more you engage with, the better all of it does.
Absolutely. I think that's, at the end of the day, all these platforms are fighting for attention.
Yeah.
The more attention you give it, with all of their features.
Yeah,
and I mean, literally 24 hours a day, you could have somebody logging into your account
100%.
all the time. You would start ranking.
Yeah.
It would reward.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say that would be me on it 24 hours a day, but I would definitely think about employing, you know, extra people to do that.
The issue with TikTok is, compared to Facebook and how it was, particularly for an e-commerce brand, is it's not that easy to make work from an e-commerce point of view. And the TikTok Shop, I mean, I know brands in beauty who are doing 5 million a month on the TikTok Shop. So it 100% can work.
What kind of brands? What do they do?
Makeup brands. Yeah, okay. Makeup brands. But quite new brands, you know, they've leveraged everything. They have got great feeds themselves, TikTok Shop, TikTok Live, TikTok affiliates. So all those products are in the mix, and the affiliates are also having viral moments using their products. So you can see how there's a lot. I feel like
it's made for makeup, because it's one of those short attention spans. Fake tan would be great.
Yeah.
Here's my arm, it's white. Here's it brown. Bang, there we go. There's your video.
Totally.
Like you can see the product. Pair of sunglasses, this is what they look like.
Yeah.
With a product like mine, I feel like it's not the impulse buy. It's not. It's a thought about decision. It's something that's quite personal, and they're like tentative. Like, will it work? Well, I've tried everything else. This is what, you know what I mean.
Well, and that's the reason why I think there's two reasons why other brands are struggling to make it work. Which is, one, it's a very fast moving environment. I'd be like trying to go shopping whilst on a waltzer ride at the fairground. You know, like it's not. You're not actually. Whereas Facebook and Instagram, you're scrolling in a more considered way.
Yeah.
TikTok, you're obviously in your frantic mode. So it's quite a fast moving environment to then ask people to shop. To shop in.
And that's why I feel like low price point, like clothes, fast fashion would work on there. Makeup, like there's a blusher, there's an eyeshadow. There we go, amazing. I feel like that is absolutely geared up towards that. So you said you were using TikTok Shop. Which brand is that for? BizKids?
No, we've only just started for the Notting Hill shopping bag.
Okay.
And I have quite low expectations of it working anytime soon, just because I have so much contact with brands through D2C Live that I know it's going to be quite a painful journey. But the one thing I will say when it comes to the Notting Hill shopping bag is most of the, and this is where it would work for a brand like you. So there's great cost efficiency on TikTok in the same way as there was on Facebook in 2017. So you can run stuff at quite low cost, but the majority of organic content is going out to new people. So it's upper funnel awareness. If you check your stats, you'll see 70 or 80% of everything you're going out is going out to new people on the FYP page. So for upper funnel, that's very powerful, because then it's not about them buying right now. It's about building brand awareness. Yeah.
Maybe getting them to the website, maybe getting their email address.
And just getting them into your world and being able to do that sort of at the cost of production of a video, which if you can do the cost of production of a video very low cost, then you can get them into your world at very low cost.
I feel like BizKids is flying because it's kids, because kids are on TikTok. Whereas again, my ladies
what I was going to say about the Notting Hill.
plus.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at TikTok, it's really interesting because so many people see stuff on TikTok. So even like really, you know, very impressive M&A advisors that I know will say, oh yeah, you know, I follow your stuff on TikTok. And it's like, well, I thought when I was talking to you, I needed to talk to you through LinkedIn, but now I know you're on TikTok. That's interesting. I think with the Notting Hill shopping bag business, one thing we've seen is that we've put a lot of attention to TikTok, but not as much as BizKids, on the BizKids feed. We haven't engaged with so much of their products, but there's definitely a frenzy around the shops now. 100% people arrive at the shops really excited. The shops are becoming destination shops. That has to be a result of the social media. That wasn't the state of play for those businesses 18 months ago, not in the same way as it is now. And I think that's a soft metric, isn't it? And we are in e-commerce, we look for a lot of hard metrics. But actually, if you think about the world and how people operate, they go through journeys with their interactions and learning about brands. It's not like, oh yeah, I saw your product today, I'm buying it now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's rarely the case.
It's rarely the case.
We get like people on Instagram and then they'll say, I've been following you for like 12 months. And
Exactly.
Today I purchased.
Exactly.
So it's just drip feeding that information that they want over time.
Yeah.
I feel like our engagement on Instagram's gone down terrible as well, though, at the moment. And I think that's partly just my fault, really, because I'm just under-resourced, which is my next hire is somebody who's great at social media, to be honest, because it's, you know, I know that beast needs feeding and they're all freaking hungry. Every single platform.
And you've nailed it up. You've completely nailed it. They are beasts and they need feeding and they're content monsters, and TikTok is the worst of them all. I spend my days, pushing videos into the mouth of TikTok.
Yeah.
Like literally you could see it like that. If it was a newborn baby, it would be one of those ones that never stop breastfeeding, and you'd be like, please give me a break. But all the platforms, another thing that I find fascinating is the way all the other platforms have changed their algorithm to match TikTok's via the Reels formats and YouTube Shorts. So that is a bit of an alarm sound by the other platforms. You don't normally get a contender come along and then giants like Facebook just say, oh yeah, sure, we'll just switch our algorithm up, which is what's happened.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I might give TikTok a whirl again.
It's going to take resource, Alyssa. That's the thing, it's a resource question, and TikTok is on one level really high resource because the number of videos it needs and the fact that it's so fast moving. On another level, it's quite low resource because at least it's not taking direct cash from your current account in quite the way Facebook does. I mean, Joanna Jensen, who's the founder of Child's Farm, she spoke at the last D2C Live. She's ended up selling Child's Farm for about 36 million to PZ Cousins. And she said, what's great about TikTok is that you're feeding it with content, you're not feeding it with cash. And that is a big thing for a lot of brands. So then it becomes about, okay, how can you get that content at really low cost? And, there's various ways in which people can do that. But that's why the content creators themselves end up doing so well, because they're able to just produce the content themselves. And you're a content creator, Alyssa.
I just feel like, honestly, ever since I kind of had a child and then now, so I drew this out to Kelly the other day because I said, we were talking about this and I said, no, it's like, imagine my brain was a pie chart and I used to have like, Danny in that section and then me and then, maybe the gym and whatever. And then 75% of the pie chart was Elle-Sera, and that's what it needed to be. Every part of my brain was not really focusing on, you keep everything else ticking over, but it was like 100% aggressive growth. Let's go, blah, blah, blah. It consumed me. And now, as soon as you have a baby, bang, like now my pie chart, let's say 50% is grace, right? So then you've got a bit, maybe I've got 15% left for like Elle-Sera. So, and somebody said to me the other day, and I could have hit them. They were like, well, when Grace goes to bed, what else have you got to do? And I'm like, what else have I got to do? Oh, right. Because like, there's not many people in my business. There's no direction unless I'm coming up with it. I'm constantly looking at marketing ideas, but to come up with those marketing ideas, I've got to research, like read a paper or something, then you've got to create that content or fire it out to somebody to create that content. But it won't be right because the graphic designer can't get in my head. So I need to explain it in fine detail. Plus these technical things that they don't understand. So I need to explain it to them before they do it. All that requires a lot of time. And she goes to bed at 8:30. And so I've probably got about an hour's window of time after my day is done. And in the daytime, it's like by the time I've got to work, had a few calls, done a few things, looked over the figures, deal with customers, right? Retain at all costs, do this, do that, do the other, then plan, okay, we need to do an event, in-person event, we need to talk to this person, let's start planning that. It's absolutely crazy. Then as soon as 4:00 hits, I've got to get home. So between the hours of 4 and 8:30, I'm now with Grace. That's my other job.
Yeah.
Running a household, keep your relationship alive, whatever. And then I start work again at 8:30 till like 9:30 before I'm dead.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult. And I'm like, what else do I fucking need to do? And that's why when people say I'm a bit of a monk with my lifestyle and stuff like that, I don't get drunk at the weekends. I'm like, I can't. I literally can't, because I wouldn't be able to get up for my daughter. I'd be absolutely like no chance. I couldn't even focus. Hangovers take so long to get over. I wouldn't even be able to focus.
Yeah.
And I've got so many other things going on in my head, in my orbit, that it's absolutely crazy. And it is not the same for guys.
No, it's so not the same
really
for guys.
not.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And what you're talking about is, I guess, the plight faced by every ambitious woman who has children, who wants to keep things going. And
this is why I get pissed off with LinkedIn so much, because I'm seeing the fucking ecom bros going on about their productivity and, wanking over their whoop sleep, analysis. Oh, fantastic. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's why you're ahead of me. But let me just tell you, you're not better than me. You've just got a few more hours in the day.
It's very different for guys, and there's no way around it. And that hasn't changed. I mean, I had an argument with my son, who's now 15, just to give you an idea of what's coming at the week. And it's not, I hate it when I argue with him. It's interesting when they're older and you argue, because it's like more of an argument. Yeah. But I said to him, like, it was about 10 o'clock at night and I was loading the washing machine, and I still had some, I'm the same as you, very consumed by work, and have always been trying to fight that battle. And I don't know if I've won or lost it, but I've slightly got through it because my kids are now older. But did I do well or not? I mean, who knows? I don't really know. But, I said to him, like, it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm still tidying the kitchen, loading the washing machine. I said, I've been working for 13 hours today, because I'd worked all day just to catch up and stuff. So I'd done 13 hours of work. I'm now doing the housework. I've still got to do the washing. He just made a fuss that he didn't like my dinner. And I said...
you ungrateful bastard.
Yeah. And I said to him, like, it's just so disheartening. Like, my only break, ironically, is when I come in here to make you dinner. I only made spaghetti carbonara. It's hardly the most controversial dish known to man. And I said, I've made a spaghetti carbonara. I felt pathetic, because I was like, I've made this spaghetti carbonara. You don't like it, but my only break is making you dinner, because I've still got, you can see I'm doing the laundry. I've still got to tidy this kitchen, and I still need to send some emails. So I probably won't go to bed till 11:30. And I said, and I literally, it's soul destroying to then have a negative reaction to this carbonara, because it represents everything. It represents the only break I've had in day. It represents me doing something for my children, being there. Yeah. And I was crushed, it was awful. And then I still feel bad. And even now, with like sort of 4 days on, and it's still on my mind, taking headspace. What's interesting with older children is they don't, obviously it's different with a little one, but they still consume headspace, because now it's like all this kind of admin trying to get him a job. He's got GCSE mocks. It's all this type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And really it does fall on the mothers. I don't know anyone who's not in the situation that you've described, if they are a woman who is ambitious and is trying to follow a dream. Most people I think that I know are women with businesses, some of them very successful, and some of them are just like clinging on by their fingernails.
Well, exactly. And I feel at the moment I'm clinging on. And then like we had Maxine here, obviously, you know her very well. You really helped her build and shape that brand.
Yeah.
She started that when she was 50.
Well, and she came, I saw her the other week as well, and she said it is great, like doing this with slightly older children. Firstly, they work in the business with you.
But she was a stay-at-home mum and dedicated her life to being a mum. And I feel like almost like I'm in that situation where it's like, I am absolutely pulled in two different directions now. Which one do you want to be in? Because you could pick this up again when you're 50. They've flown the nest. It's now time for you. And maybe that's the time that women should be starting businesses.
I think it is a good time. And, certainly with what Maxine, she's a perfect illustration of that. And I can see now, I'm 47 now, so my son's 15 and my daughter's 11. I can see like this window of time opening up. And I do think, am I going to regret? Did I not have to do that then? Did I actually not have to do what I did do? But at the time, because I now can see that this great window is going to open up, and
and
my kids can even work in the business. My daughter already is in BizKids, and my son's now working at the shop. So it's great. I love it. It's brilliant when I go to the shop and see my son there, because I'm like, well, first of all, he can be more productive, and second of all, it's like, I get more time with him and he gets to understand things. He's now a bit more of a grown-up. So this is a whole different phase of our relationship. So I don't think I know any answers at all, because I don't. But I did see Maxine and I thought, oh God, did I not have to do what I did? But certainly at the time, I felt I absolutely had to do what I did. Like I felt, filled with kind of ambition and goals. And then had kids.
Yeah. And then again, I mean, I hear from lots of women who then the partners aren't very supportive. Then that has that takes up a lot of headspace as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you haven't got a very supportive partner that doesn't really help you out, doesn't really understand, and then
I don't think many partners help women out in the way that they fully understand what all the different decision points that the woman's going through in relation to the kid.
No.
So most partners help out superficially.
Well,
they take the kids, they help around the kitchen, but it's just things like the school admin, you know, the lunch money. There's not many, I don't know any where they actually are into that level. The school uniforms, the school uniforms, that.
Yeah. What have you got on
the
today?
School shoes.
World Book Day.
It's all of that.
All of that.
Even the school shoes. My daughter, I mean, my kids have come to me many times and I felt so ashamed with like literally soles falling off their shoes. The sole is falling off their shoes. And I think, oh my God, I'm sending my child to school in a pair of shoes with the soles falling off. And it's not money, it's literally my attention to detail and the fact. And then they're saying, and I look at it, my God, I've got to get them a new pair of shoes tomorrow because I'm so appalled about this.
Yeah.
And then I'm having a panic attack about what a terrible mother I am.
No, exactly. And it's difficult and you beat yourself up completely. And I read something interesting the other day that was like women's hobbies will always keep her in the home. So it'd be like painting, knitting, sewing.
Oh, did you? That's interesting.
Whereas,
my hobbies work, which keeps me in the house on laptop.
Well, there you go. Because you've got to be close to the kids.
You've got to be near the kids.
Yeah.
And it's better to be in, and actually that's one thing I did with my approach, and which was always, well, I'm not going to be a full-on stay-at-home mum because I don't want to be, and I can't afford to be, and I just don't want to be, and I have all these plans. But one thing I will be is ever present.
For sure.
So that I would always be present, even if I'm actually not paying any attention. I will still be there in physical form, which hopefully will be enough, but probably isn't.
Whereas men's hobbies take them away, golf, fishing, going to the gym or going to sports.
Oh, that's so
All
true.
of them go away for long periods of time, away from the home to go and enjoy something. And I'm like, well, there you go. Like Danny's taking up golf now and I'd never see it. So I'm like, oh, great. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That's really interesting and really true.
Yeah. So I don't know what the answer is either, apart from I just sit and moan about it every week on the podcast.
Well, no, but I think when you're running an e-commerce brand, and I think, so with the Notting Hill shops, and thank goodness it's not an e-commerce business because
that's a physical business.
It's a physical business.
And it's like a tourist attraction.
It's a tourist attraction,
Great,
but it needs an e-commerce side to it. And I also see the e-com bros on LinkedIn and think, okay, I know how to do e-commerce. I need to sort this out now. I need to build the Notting Hill shop e-commerce. And I think it's such a lot to do when you don't have the luxury of like just unlimited time because you're all in, you've got kids.
Well, exactly. And exactly. And that's honestly, I have to refrain from commenting on their shite on LinkedIn a lot of the time. There's one in particular, I'm just like, oh my God, going on again about how productive he is. I'm like, you've got nobody else in your life to deal with apart from this one rubbish product.
It's like you should be productive because that's all you've got. That's what you've got to do. Yeah.
Great. All pat on the back. Whereas actually, I like hearing from women, how did you do it? Women who have like got families, and like I always think who's a great example of this, like Sarah Blakely from Spanx. She's got like 4 kids and stuff, and a partner that's like going off doing ultra marathons and whatever. And she is just like a powerhouse. And those are the people I tune into. Again, I'm sick of listening to mindset coaches, SAS coaches.
There is a lot of SAS coaches around.
Shut up. Yeah. Do you know, who's looking after your children? Your missus. I'd rather listen to her, because all these people, again, they're not putting their kids to bed while you're going to climb Everest. Yeah. It's quite selfish, actually.
I mean, Orielle, who's the co-founder of Elle-Sera, her and her husband actually did a kind of role swap once Elle-Sera really took off. And she talks about how that really made things possible for her. But that's very unusual. And it's very unusual to have that and make it work as well, I think.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I can't see Danny doing that anytime soon. Well, the thing is, he's got his own ambitions. He's
got huge ambitions of his own. Yeah.
He's got his, every other day. Now he wants to join the senior tour as a golfer. I'm like, right, okay. And I have to go along with his ideas and just sit and be a bit passive. But yeah, I don't know what the answer is. So, okay. So apart from like TikTok, Instagram, where else could we be like marketing our businesses if you're e-com or not? I mean, you kind of spread your you do not keep your eggs in one basket, which is what I love about you. You've got like a physical shops, you know how that works. You've got Biz Kids, which is like a non-for-profit, which is absolutely flying. You've got D2C, which is like an in-person event.
Yeah.
But, you know, to somebody starting out, which has got limited resources, where would you hedge your bets as being the best place?
For an e-commerce product?
Oh, well, yeah, I think so.
And I do think the world of e-commerce has become very, very complicated. If I think about what we deal with and you know, who comes onto the D2C live stage. And the main audience for that is bigger brands, so more established and very ambitious brands. So they'll often be funded and they'll often be on big growth trajectories. So to some extent, the reason, you know, that it's quite complicated is because they have huge goals. Like nearly most 75% of the e-commerce of the D2C live community are raising money. Everyone wants to sell their brand for 100 million. Like that's...
Me too.
Yeah. So and once a brand gets bigger, there's a lot of it. There's more complexity anyway because the volumes of orders.
You're absolutely right. I'm just thinking then about what you're saying. So like, I just built a website for £200 when I started.
Yeah. And this is where you start.
Yeah.
And I sometimes try and get new brands not to come to D2C Live because it's overwhelming. They're not at the phase where they can even begin to think about tech integrations, tech efficiencies, AI integrations, you know, outsourcing customer service. What we talk about, and it's really interesting for me because with the Notting Hill shopping bag, and you're right, they're a physical shop. And I'm thinking, well, of all the people in, you know, I have access to a great amount of knowledge and people who would happily partner with me in all their tech solutions for the Notting Hill shopping bag company. And then I'm thinking, actually, that is even overwhelming for me because of the fact that the business is a retail business and we're moving it into e-commerce. So you need to think of them as being startup businesses at that point. The e-commerce channel's new. So I'm thinking, what do you actually just need to do if you strip it back? And I forget that I know what I'm going to be doing when it does 20 million because that's irrelevant. At the moment, it's a retail business with a very tiny e-commerce business. And I'm like, what do you actually need to do to get starting? And if I could take all these things I know, what would I do? So with that in mind, I'll tell you what I've taken. Similar to you, a simple £200 Shopify website. I go out and do the shoots myself, you know, do a lot of... I went into the market on Saturday. I must have met 100, 150 women. You know, there's hundreds of people who buy those bags every weekend. We rolled out a red carpet. So I did stunt marketing. We rolled out a red carpet in the middle of Portobello Market. Where we saw customers coming along. They're always coming along, people carrying the bag because everyone's buying them. And I said, hello, I'm the founder of the Notting Hill Shop Bag. Would you like to walk our red carpet for TikTok? We had 81-year-old women walking the red carpet. So a bit of stunt marketing because I'm trying to do everything on a budget. I don't want to. I'm not prepared. I'm not a funded business. I don't want to drop in big agency costs and big model costs and things. I
saw it in Leicester Square.
The red carpet, I saw...
no, your Notting Hill shopping bag.
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere. They are everywhere. Thank God they're well known. But it's been 50... Oh, the other thing, this is another thing someone said to me, oh, you designed this. This is amazing. It's so well known. And I said, it's 15 years. I designed this 15 years ago. We've been sending them constantly for 15 years. So that's the compounding impact of time. It's like, please don't anyone look at the Notting Hill shopping bag and think that is an overnight success. It really isn't. It's a 15-year journey.
Slog,
And now, thanks to social media, it's much more viral and it's become much more design-led and much more, you know, colour drop-led. But essentially, that's a long-term project. So what have I done? Cheap Shopify store, a bit of stunt marketing, using me and the shop girls as models. I mean, to be honest, it's funny. I'm 47, Ezra's 45. The others are just so not models, but it's like we just do the modelling because that's what you have to do. I'm driving awareness through TikTok because you've got to get traffic from somewhere. So that's the main thing. You've got to get eyeballs and traffic. I believe at the moment, TikTok is the cheapest and fastest way to do that if you can create the content. Now, I can create the content because I've got a section of my business called the Edit Squad, which is all our editors. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have the Edit Squad. Every day I thank God for the Edit Squad, you know, because they enable me to drive very low cost eyeballs. And then... So essentially, that's the 4 things I've got going.
Yeah.
The next thing I probably will bring in will be the Facebook ASCs because I'm literally at this point where I'm like, okay, now I'm going to pull in one more thing. What's it going to be? And I'm going to go with Facebook ASC.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
But on a very low budget because the whole thing needs to be run very efficiently. And I'm bringing in, and we're also doing TikTok affiliates. So we've started the TikTok affiliate program. We're sending out bags to the creators on TikTok who've requested them. And that should drive further organic reach. And we've set up the TikTok shop. again for that. So I can't speak from this for any point of being a pro because it's all very new to the Notting Hill shopping bag. It literally only started the e-commerce kind of in earnest about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
But those are the things I've chosen, 6 things.
Okay. Well, that's really good. And I think people will get a lot of value out of that because, you don't need to like go and get loads of tech. I feel like I've got loads of tech in the back end now and it's very, very expensive. All of them are like subscriptions for like $3.99 a month.
Well, they do add up. They definitely add up. Of course
they do. So the website that cost me £200 now, I can't even imagine how much it actually cost me just for the website to run each month now. But we should talk about some absolute great tech out there. Some that I've employed that has absolutely revolutionized the way I look at my business. One being Viable. You actually put me onto Viable, so we should actually tell the audience about that. Go ahead, Tash. You take it.
Well, Franklin, so Viable is a finance tech, and it is being developed into have an AI element as well. And it essentially does. So when I ran Bolt Digital, which is the agency through which we got into e-commerce, we used to do a lot of financial modelling for brands. We were really early at like looking at e-commerce brands, looking at the price point, and actually trying to ascertain whether these businesses were viable or not. There were a lot of people putting huge amounts of money into selling low price products. And me and my business partner were really concerned about the risk, that people were taking financially. So we started developing a lot of ways in which to financially model and forecast the brands. And you saw some of those things.
Sure,
what was great about the models and things we built is they were pretty good. They were pretty accurate and normally they came to pass. But they were done manually without technology. And we had a brilliant model called a scenario planner, which looked at ad spend, future projections. Everyone wants to know, how much do I need to spend in order to get what? And if I spend what's going to happen? The unanswerable question is like, let me just reach for my crystal ball because there's way more factors in results than just what you spend for a start. But Viable then came along as through D2C Live, we have access to, I would say, the leading e-commerce tech. They speak at our conferences, they partner with us, and they essentially want to speak to the brands. So we vet them and sort of ascertain, who are these people? Is their business likely to survive? Because some of these tech businesses are funded and then, come and go.
Yeah.
Are they getting good results? Do we understand what their software is? So put them through some form of vetting process. Can they provide a case study? And Frank, who's the founder of Viable, came along. I think I was referred to him via a friend with Viable. And that is essentially he said to me, it can replace your FD. It can do what your finance director does for a brand that's under £10 million. I mean, you've onboarded into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Ian, who looks after me over at Viable. He's such a great guy. And my God, he looks at the business in such a different way to me. I'm all front end. Like, how does this look? Does my Instagram page look like gold and glassy and whatever? And is the customer experience good? Have we looked after that customer? It's her birthday, do something for her, whatever. That's what I, think about. Ian sits there and does all the number crunching and he's like, okay, so, we could be portioning more spend here. You could be, get a new account because you're sitting on a large amount of cash. You could be earning revenue from that, blah, blah. He just looks at everything differently and asks so many different questions. And just has made me more financially literate. Yeah. Not only that, he models out all my cash flow. All my purchase orders are put in there. So I know where my cash flow is going to be in the next, month, like the next month and beyond. At some point, well, let's not spend a lot there because I know I've got a VAT bill to pay, etc. My accountants couldn't even do this.
Well, and e-commerce accountants can't because there's so much complexity, and that's one of the problems Viable solves. You've got money coming in from Shopify, Amazon, any other platform you're in.
Yeah, my Amex, my PayPal.
Yeah, PayPal's. You've then got all the fees that the payment processors are taking off it. There's things moving around daily, let alone if you've got money coming in different currencies. So one of the major pain points for brands that Viable sought to solve and has solved is the fact that they don't get there at end of accounts until like the end of the next month. Now in e-commerce, it's way too late because things are moving so fast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every brand that has onboarded into Viable loves it. Not one of them is leaving. One guy said to me that if he had to say something went wrong in the business and he had to take everything out, fire all the staff, and it all went terribly wrong, the last thing he would remove from his e-commerce business was Viable.
Well,
so he said that would be the last thing to go. He would fire all his staff
before he
got made viable.
I think I would do the same. I'd be like, sorry, Kelly, you're out of a job. Sorry, Ian, you're staying there.
I mean, he said literally it would be the last thing in any cost driving exercise, the last thing that would go would be viable. So that's a fantastic finance app for e-commerce brands. And it's really solving the problems that they have, which is firstly, are we making any, but on a much faster basis than any accountant can ever do.
Well, I used to get my management accounts done every 3 months and they would just tell me what happened 3 months ago. I'm like,
But you're like, it's way past then.
I don't even care. You're telling me what I did
yesterday.
Yeah, I don't even care. Well, you're telling me about money I spent ages ago.
Yeah.
Honestly, don't care about that. Tell me about, scrutinise the figures. Where could I be buying more efficiently? Could I be buying in bulk on that? I've got a new subscription gift. Should I buy some for next year as well?
Yeah.
They actually don't sit there and do that. And actually, the other thing is he's got great experience because he's been in e-com startups himself. He's looked to scrutinise those figures. So he brings a lot of experience to the party.
And, some of these bigger brands that everyone aspires to be, the £100 million brands, they all have these finance guys in them like Ian. So there's certain people in e-commerce that are really hard to find. One is the head of growth, the performance marketer, the ad ops person, the person who can just deal with all the channels. And then the other is the finance person. But all the big brands have these very shrewd, I mean, Ian's come from that background.
Yeah,
he's the epitome of what they all have. And that's part of what they're using to fuel their growth. So when you look at a big brand like that, you think, oh, they're so amazing. All they've done is they've gone viral and that's happened. It's like absolute rubbish.
No.
They have got amazing heads of growth in there and they've got amazing finance people because the money is moving around so fast and you have to put out so much money up front for stock, which then gets stuck and the Red Sea or being diverted around the south, the coast of South Africa. So they all have those types of people in them.
Yeah, no, I can't recommend them more.
Or the other app that's doing really well in terms of that is an app called Live Me Up.
Live shopping.
The live shopping on your website. Now he is getting tremendous results.
Right.
Where people are hosting lives once a month and then the live lives on your website as a shoppable video. He's even being integrated into TikTok in the US. So it's a pretty impressive app.
Yeah.
But phenomenal results from people, ranging from, say, the types of entrepreneurs we know selling health, beauty and fashion things to just a completely random guy who sells orchids and he literally sits in a gazebo in a field sort of talking about his latest orchids.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I go live on our Instagram page a lot, because then people can ask you like live questions. I can just respond to them, which is great. But usually people are just asking me about my competitors and I don't like to slag off my competitors because they actually make shit products, I'll be honest. And I can literally stand there and go, well, I'll tell you why theirs is right. But I actually don't like to do that because it's just going to live on my Instagram page. You know what I mean? I just feel like focus on what I'm good at. I don't really need to shit all over everybody else, but actually business is business, let's be honest. I feel like I'm a bit too kind sometimes.
I always say to people not to worry too much about their competitors because you can go down a rabbit hole.
For sure. I don't even want to look at what they're doing.
Like, oh my God, that's what they're doing. And then in that time, you're not working on your own business.
Yeah, so and I just want to do what we do well and do it to the best of my ability.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And
got
ignore the
blinkers on.
competitors.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. So I'm always sitting on Alibaba and they do live shopping all the time. And
the guy from Live Me Up used to work at Alibaba, I think.
Yeah.
He spent 20 years in China, so he knows this landscape in and out.
And so if I want to see something that might become a subscription product, like our bags or whatever, the quality of it, I can literally, I'm like, hi, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. They're live, they're sat there on the phone waiting for someone to come on like me. And I'm like, can you show me that, please? Like, show me the handle, show me this, show me that, show me the other.
Yeah. But resourcing wise, because it always comes back, one brand said to me, I think I need to hire some hosts, like full-time, someone who's just
like a
TV presenter type, but it's a social presenter.
Right.
And I thought, well, that day's probably coming. Yes, it probably is, because live shopping, I don't think the UK's massively embracing it, but I think we're starting to embrace it. And then brands will need, and it's just another person on the team, isn't
I have
it?
got Kelly Bond and she is like Mrs. Theatre. She can do 100% do that job.
But there's a pet food brand or a pet supplement brand that does lives all day, every day on TikTok.
Right.
They're just there waiting because there's always people passing through the live streams. It's a bit like having the shop in Portobello Road. There's always people passing along Portobello Road. Yeah. There's always someone new coming along.
Okay. Well, this chat has been amazing, enlightening. I can't believe we've just done an hour. It's gone so quickly.
It has gone so quickly.
I'm equally excited and equally terrified. I'm just like, oh my God, how much content I've got to produce. Especially, I need to get over like my hang-ups. It's hard enough me doing this podcast, which I have got full control over the edit pretty much, the camera angles and the way I sit.
Well, I think you don't have to do all these things, but you do need to keep your eye on a rising channel like TikTok. You do, because the resource they're putting into it, and they've literally been paying for postage for all of the UK brands who move to the TikTok shop.
Wow.
There's huge, and that shows their level of commitment, yeah. So you do have to have in this corner of your eye the new kid on the block coming here.
I feel like I need to do a little consult with Fred. Fred, by the way, was my old account manager who left.
Gave D2C Live a shout out, a sarcastic shout out. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice of him.
Or is it nice of him? We don't know.
He left my account to become a TikTok star, and well,
he is a bit TikTok star now.
Yeah, it takes all types. Okay, well, I will. So, Tash, where can we get hold of you?
If you go to my website, natashacourtenay-smith.com, or on TikTok, go to BizKids or D2C Live or Notting Hill Company.
Fabulous. You should follow her because she's got full insights. You should sign up to the D2C Live newsletter as well.
It's a great newsletter.
Really good newsletter. I read it every single week, and she always puts in there great hints and tips, and that actually really does change my marketing landscape and some of the decisions I make.
Oh, good.
So,
I'm glad.
Yeah, so it's really good, really good. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me, Alyssa.
Thank you.